Mate, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
So basically, what we've done is we've started a little Facebook group and community, and we're all just trying to help each other, build each other up, and learn as much as we can during isolation, so that we come out of the other side of this a little bit more smarter and
Yep.
with, I guess, some more tools for the industry. So it's just amazing to have someone like yourself on board who is just absolutely smashing it on, during isolation. I can't believe it. Like I see your live stream pop up every Saturday, but I was just having a cheeky stalk today as well. And like, this is the 24th week, and like every time you go
Yeah.
live, like 800 people instantly like it. Like it's just insane.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. It was something that I started just because it was the date that I was supposed to play Reminisce,
Yeah,
which is the big party for those that don't know. It started off at the Prince, then it moved to the Music Bowl last year that Sean Rolt and a couple of other guys run. And when that started, it was like, a 500-person party that just sold out and it rocked. And then the next year it was like full house at the Prince and sold out. And the date of the first event that I did online was the date that it was supposed to be at the bowl, and it got cancelled 4 days before. So it was like, will I do something? Yeah, I thought I might as well do something. And purely through chance, I said to the guys, do you want to do it from the Reminisce site? And they're like, nah, you just do it from it's your idea. So I did it from my DJ page, and it was like 4,500 people watched that night, which was crazy. And I was like, holy shit bags, Like I had a look at the Defected one the next day, and they had 4,500. And that's globally for their first one. So I was like, I'm sure it peaked higher than that. For them, it would have been bigger at some stage. But at that moment, it was just like, wow. And I was like, it was kind of like it wasn't real. Hasn't really been a business decision at all, even though it's been great for me from a business point of view. It was just like, gee, I've got to play some music. Who knows how long I'm not going to be able to DJ for. I want to do something. So just did it.
Yeah, I noticed the Mixclouds, like you're topping the Mixcloud charts as well, like above Fatboy Slim and other people that are obviously like some of the biggest DJs in the world.
Again,
I've seen some of Fatboy Slim's streams as well. It's just like the effort he puts into it, and like, he has all those screens on the wall.
I think I think the organicness of my one is part of the appeal. And I had people say to me, do you want to, we'll come to our setup and we've got a screen behind you. We can put a screen behind you and come to our warehouse. And I'm like, you know what? It works just from my record collection. I can turn around, I can grab a tune, like sometimes I'm just looking through records and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to play that. Like it's a completely different feel. And I think one of the lessons that you can definitely take out of this whole thing is, you can't just always do stuff for money. You've just got to do stuff because it's what we love and because it's passion and worry about that other shit later. Like there's no way I was considering what the webcast could be. I was just like, it feels good to do it. Feels good for me to do it. I think people who know me will interact with it. I think the fact that Reminisce was supposed to be on, the fact that I've played a lot of clubs for a long time. So when I play classics, people can identify with it. It's maybe a little bit harder if you're 18 to do a radio show or a broadcast full of classics, because the people who are watching it never heard you play classics in the first place. You know what I mean? But for me,
definitely.
If somebody's sitting at home with 2 kids and they're 45 years old, they potentially did come to where I DJ'd 25 years ago, unfortunately for me.
Actually, it's funny. My friend Lavelle, who's DJ in Melbourne, who's in New Zealand at the moment, he escaped stage 4, and he was showing his mum your live streams and on Saturday. And he flipped me a message. He goes, "Hey, he's playing your remix of Roger Sanchez." I was like, "Oh, so thank you for that."
Oh yes, good mix, man.
And also, my old housemate when I was living in St Kilda, Devo, he probably watches your stream every Saturday night. Before you started doing these streams, that was the warm-up music, was the Reminisce SoundCloud.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Streams. Yeah, I think he's been to like every single one of them. So Yeah, there's some great stuff there as well. I was never around for those parties. I only have been back. I moved out of Melbourne before I was 18, and I've only been back the last year. So I missed out on all of them. But it was just good to listen back, and yeah, I can
Yeah,
definitely feel the vibe. Like,
again, that's something that just built out of, you know, some guys coming together, and they had a party in their backyard originally for 50 people, I think. For 50 people, and they said to all the 50 people, when you come in, you got to give us your top 10, right? Your
yeah,
top 10 classic tracks. And they compiled it and they gave it to the DJ an hour later, and the DJ played it. And then they come to Sean Rolt and said, hey, Sean, do you reckon we could do this like as a proper event? And do you reckon you could get Corsi? So Sean
amazing.
approached me about it, and I'm like, look, if you guys are confident that you can, I said, the only thing that's going to make it work is people voting. If you can get people to
Yeah,
engage, it'll work. It'll smash it. But if you can't get people to engage, it'll be a disaster. They got people to engage. They got 900 top tens for the first week for the first event. And obviously, what
oh
happens
wow,
then is you get, you got 700 people in the prints who were all going, when's my song going to get played? This is my number one. What's going to be number one? And we kept it all hidden and like a Triple J Hot 100. So the concept was really strong with the right people involved, and they nailed that. And then, the whole thing's just smashed it from that point forward. So, but again, it wasn't like a money-making idea at the start. It was a passion project that turned into something that last year did, 10,000 people at the My Music Bowl.
yeah. I think anyone that knows Sean Rolt knows that his passion is partying. That's for sure.
Well, he's not scared to go
to
out. He's not
that.
scared to go out.
100%. Oh, mate, amazing stuff. It's so good to see. I like you said, I think you've definitely got that niche there, and the fact that it's like the classics and future anthems sort of branded, it just really highlights the sort of style. I think people know what they're going to listen to. It's not just someone randomly going live and you have no idea what you're going to get. So I think you've
Yeah,
hit
and
the nail on
again,
the head.
it reflects what I do as a DJ. I mean, I've always played new music, but I do play a lot of gigs that are classics. So I was adamant that I wanted new music as part of as part of playing, unlike Reminisce, which is purely classics. So I kind of was like, you know what, I've got to make sure I play new music in this as well. If it's an ongoing thing, which it probably will be, I thought right from the start, I'll probably do this every week because I'm going to enjoy it. And I need, in these times when everything's shut, you need that kind of, I guess you need that outlet, So I was like, definitely want new music to be part of it as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Has there ever been any like top 100 editions that you didn't want to play, or it's kind of like a lot of DJs complain about getting requests. This is kind of like
the ultimate request.
The whole thing is requests.
Yeah. Reminisce is, you got as a DJ, it's the least, I wouldn't say the least skillful thing, but I mean, to me, the art of a good DJ is programming. And with Reminisce, it gets voted, and I played it in the order it gets voted, the top 50 records. So it's like, it's the one time when I get all this kind of feedback, like, of course, it was so good, it was great. And I'm like, I mixed it together, and I might have done some creative things with finding acapellas and, joining records together in a certain way, because you have to figure out how to join 140 BPM, Underworld Born Slippy with Praise You by, Fatboy Slim, that's 113. So you find acapellas and you link them together in a cool way. But as far as the art of DJing is programming music primarily. That's your number one skill. And that's what you should be focusing on as a DJ. And I don't do that at the Reminisce gigs, But the Saturday night thing is completely different, because while it started off out of the fact that there was supposed to be a Reminisce party, it hasn't ever been all classic music, and it's whatever I want to play. As I said, it's always had new music. It's always just been my flavor. And while I do get requests, and I, part of the appeal of the show, and in fact, if you look at the statistics of things like Spotify of what music is peaking during this period, contemporary new music has dropped off a little bit, and classic music across all genres has gone up, whether it be rock, country, whether it be rock, country, dance. And the fact is that when people are unsure and they feel insecure, they want things they know.
Yeah.
So musically, having the classics was, you know, always going to go down well with people who were like, I don't know where I'm going to, you know, whether I'm going to be able to go out next week. I don't know whether a cafe is going to be open. I don't know if I can go to the pub, but I can hear some songs that are familiar. And the interaction of that and the chat and people talking about where they used to go. And the interesting thing is how well that community of people, which are ultimately like all of us, lovers of dance music,
Yeah.
how much they love new music. You know, there's this mentality in people that when you're old, you don't like new music in this weird way, because when you go to a venue that plays traditional old, you know, kind of, I guess, top 40 music, the people were never into new music when they were 18, 19, 20, the people that go to, you know, Joe Blogg's over 35s, listening to Barnsey and ABBA, you know, are they going to like a new club track? Of course they're not, because they didn't like an old club track, you know. But when you've got an audience that like old club music, they're so open-minded to new club music. So there's absolutely no age barrier to music. It's just about tapping into those people and finding them out there, you know. And that's exactly what the show's done. And it's proved, you know, the feedback on new records is as good as the feedback on classics. Songs like New Love that I've played a lot because, firstly, I signed the record, so I like it. We put it out.
There's a Colour Castle remix of it as well.
Yeah, there is too, yes. And it's an uplifting piano house kind of jam. And
classic house sound.
It has, you know, and I guess that sound has also come full circle, and records that were around 25 years ago are back again, getting remixed or sampled. Chris Lake sampling, you know, I remember is a classic a cappella from that I used to play at Chase's, the original record. You know, there's so many records that are sampling early house records and bringing them back again. So it's natural that the sounds of today are resonating with people who were going out 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing that you're able to sneak a couple of those tracks in from your label. And I was actually looking today.
Well, it's more than a couple, really. I mean,
yeah.
The track listing, I had a look at my USB today just to see how many new tracks I played. And there was 18 tracks that I've added just to my collection in the last 4 weeks that I played. So it's quite a lot when people think of it as a classics thing. It's just about programming it the right way to get the right interaction and make it flow and you know, look, what am I going to do? Lose a dance floor? I mean, there's no one in front of me. So that's the other advantage, is that the ironic thing is that I could come out the end of this. I run a couple of parties every year anyway, but you know, I could run a party where I play completely random like I do here, and it could go off.
Yeah.
And nowhere else could I do that. If I did it in a traditional club where I played 6 months ago, it would probably be records that would clear the dance floor. But I could run a party now targeting that audience and play completely random classic house records from 25 years ago on Strictly Rhythm that were underground, and have people come up and high-fiving me, because the music depth of people is incredible.
Yeah, amazing. It's good. Have you been playing any older records from your own label, Vicious?
Yeah, absolutely. I
saw that the first record you guys put out was in 1990, which was the year I was born.
Yes. I
wow.
played our third ever release 2 weeks ago, actually, as the closing record, a song called Come With Me by the Astral Project, which was myself. Well, the original record was Andy Van and a friend of ours who passed away, who used to make a lot of music, called Arden Godfrey. He had a very rare genetic disease and unfortunately, out of the blue passed away, which was very tragic, quite a long time ago. And then myself and a guy called David Walker, who did a song called Dreams of Heaven by Ground Level, for anybody who may remember. But that Ground Level Dreams of Heaven was our 5th release ever. Our 3rd release was this song called Come With Me. And the video was filmed at the Chevron nightclub in Melbourne, which is gone now. But when I played it, there was people in the chat who were in the video. They're like, because
Oh my God.
because what we did was we just called all of our clubbing friends and said, come to the Chevron on Saturday afternoon when we're going to make a film clip to our song, which was getting played there anyway. And there was somebody in the chat room that was like, I come to that filming. I was there. And I'm like, wow.
That's
It's pretty funny.
And so for anyone that might be doing some live streaming at home, you've got kind of like a team behind you, or you have people that come and do it for you, so you can kind of just focus just on the DJs. Okay.
I went to school as soon as I realized that Reminisce was going to be cancelled, I was like, right, I'm going to do this. How do I do it? And I went and bought an extra webcam, which I didn't have at the time. I had my laptop one, and I did have an old one laying around, but I bought a new one, and that was just before they sold out. Because if you remember, like 2 weeks in, to the first kind of isolation lockdown thing, you couldn't buy a webcam. I mean, it was rarer than, it was just impossible to find. So I got one quickly, and I already had an audio interface. I also bought a little phone-based thing that I can plug, which I could now take to a gig, actually plug my phone in, plug the record out from the mixer, and have my phone go live on the web.
Wow.
So I've got that as well for the future. But, and then I went out and just learnt how the hell all this crap works, and how OBS, which is a free software, piece of software that can broadcast. Then I worked out how to do it on multiple channels at the same time. Also, you can't really navigate dropouts. I mean, dropouts happen, copyright happens, and some weeks I'm lucky, and there's 2 weeks ago, Twitch and YouTube, no cutouts. Facebook had 3.
Yeah.
This week, Facebook had 7. YouTube had 3. And ironically, one of the copyright dropouts was on my own song, which isn't out yet. No, not even out yet.
Oh my God. What? No way.
So it's like, there is no rhyme or reason why some of this stuff happens. I get a copyright infringement notice, and then 5 days later, I get an email that it's been withdrawn. It's really a shit fight. I mean, there's no license you can get. There is no streaming license that you can get. The only way you can really do it is you go to the original label, you clear every song, and you get your channel whitelisted by those labels for that specific song. But you can't go to, like, nightclubs have a license agreement with APRA and PPCA, and they pay a flat fee based on the size of their venue and their setup, which goes to APRA and AMCOS and eventually gets distributed to the owners of the music and the writers of the music. And you don't have to put in playlists necessarily at those clubs. It just happens automatically. So there's a huge pool of money that gets divided based on things like the ARIA Club Chart, things like listening boxes in clubs, dance music radio shows, Kuvo, all this sort of stuff. So, but there is no license for streaming, and even now, we're 6 months into this, there is still no license. And, the people who could clean up, the people who could really clean up would be Facebook and YouTube. Like, if they got on the front foot, they've only got to do 5 deals, 4 major record labels, and Merlin, which is the biggest representative of independent labels in the world, covers about 23% of the music market. Get those 5 deals with those 5 people for their content, you're done. You can play 99% of the music that is made without an issue. But, you just learn what songs get stopped after a while. I don't really play original Martin Solveig tracks. They always get picked up. Eric Prydz always gets picked up. So it just means those artists just miss out. But who cares? They're like, who cares about this guy in Australia? But they miss out on a global level. That's the thing, I mean, early
It could bring
days
back
of,
songs as well. You're playing Call
yeah,
on Me and 100 people are at home doing
yeah,
Shazams or, filming themselves on Instagram, dancing
of
to it. They
course.
tag artists. It's all help. Everything
I mean,
works.
I guess more to the point is, the early days of, I remember when we had a promo with Rogue Traders when we first put out their record, and we'd had a top 40 hit in Australia with a song called One of My Kind, which was Rogue Traders' first hit in Australia, and it sampled In Excess. And we had this
Yeah.
amazing
Oh,
video.
yeah.
The video actually won the ARIA Award for Video of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Amazing video. It was this animated lizard that went clubbing, and they kind of the two guys from Rogue
I
Traders.
think I remember that.
Yeah, these two guys from Rogue Traders walk into this warehouse, and there's this rave going on, and they've got a lizard on a lead, and it gets off the lead and it runs around this warehouse, but it actually sings the lyrics to the song.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the video clip, it meets a female lizard, and they all sit down on the couch together at this rave. Anyway, great video, but I digress. We tried to do a deal at the time with the Herald Sun to give away a couple of Rogue Traders records in return for coverage about the whole Rogue Traders album coming out. So we were like, we'll give away two tracks, and they'll put it in the Herald Sun, like the publications, the equivalent in Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne. We've just got to give up the song. And we were like, yep, no problem. The publishers wouldn't do it.
Wow.
And that's just how backward they were thinking. The way Napster got treated at the start was like backward thinking. And the way that streaming online got treated at the start was backward thinking by the old school music industry. Vicious was the first label to have a dance compilation on iTunes in Australia.
Wow.
Because our mentality was, this shit's not going anywhere. It's never going to disappear. Downloading's going to happen. Streaming's going to happen when it come out. And now web broadcasting is going to happen. Our mentality is just let it happen. If there's money to be made from it because somebody's putting ads on their broadcast, or if YouTube put ads up across a broadcast while it's going, of course we want to claim those ads. And a portion of them, if our song gets played, which is how Spotify, the unpaid version of Spotify works, it's how YouTube works. Yeah. Of course we want to do that, but we don't want to stop the DJ because we just think it's going to happen anyway. So you got to embrace all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And old school labels,
Are you the type of guy that jumps on the latest DJ? I know you obviously use turntables and you still play records, but are you jumping on the latest technology and wanting to play with all the new tools as well? Or are you kind of still a bit more old school when it comes to DJing?
Look, it's more, I guess, again, I feel like the real skill of DJing versus an artist doing a show, like if you're Calvin Harris, 90% of your set is your music when you play a festival. The same with Avicii, even though he's passed now. Same with Swedish House Mafia. All those superstars, they were playing, basically they were playing their set of music, and they had lighting shows that matched it. So maybe then they can get creative with how they put it together, and use equipment and remix it kind of live, but still have some sort of basic format. But again, as a DJ, I think those moments when you pull out a song as a DJ and it's a song nobody thought was going to get played and you play it and it smashes it, it'd be a lot harder to do that if you had everything in Ableton and programmed, because even though you're looping stuff and you're being more creative with the song itself, the entire set can't possibly have the depth that you have off your USB, because you have to do so much preparation before you can play a set where you're manipulating everything live. You can buy the stems off Beatport, but how many songs are you going to buy the stems for, and you're going to pull apart and set up? How many hours are you going to put into that to play to your local club? I mean, it's different if you're doing a festival gig. Well, not who cares, it's cool. I mean, I think more manipulating stuff live, using delays, echoes, effects, maybe is more kind of what I would be more interested in playing around with.
Yeah.
And certainly if there was like, there was an old Pioneer thing that you could loop stuff with and doing things like that, yes, because it's on the fly, but you've still got programming depth to play whatever you want. And, I do have a project that I'm kind of playing around with, which hasn't really come to the surface yet, with another friend of mine. And we are looking at manipulating stuff in more of a, using controllers and stuff. But we'll see
Yeah.
how it comes out. It's, unless we can get it to a point where it's freestyle enough to be interesting while
Yeah.
not compromising the programmability, then we would consider it. But until such time, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah. I got a question for you. So the year is 2021. There's a vaccine for coronavirus. The clubs are back. Do you think DJs are still going to play Gimme, Gimme, Gimme? I reckon 100% is still getting a spin.
Well, it's going to be funny to actually see what happens with music, because we all know when you're playing a club, your playlist gradually progresses as not only as DJs, but as a club. The music you hear at 161 on, Friday, the 10th of July, on Friday, the 17th of July, it's not like there's an entire new playlist of music. There's a slightly revised playlist of music where X amount of new songs coming for the night, X amount of the same songs get played, X amount of new songs get played. I mean, if you last went out on the 1st of Feb this year and you go out on the 1st of Jan next year, the entire playlist could be easily new. So are people going to play the biggest song from 2000 and not 20, the last, or January 2021? Are they going to play Gimme Gimme? Are they going to play whatever it was that was big at the start of this year, leading into next year, even though it's 12 months later? It's going to be quite strange to see how music gets programmed.
We had an interesting thought when we were talking to Ivan Goff, and Mobin made a really good point about a flood of new releases happening basically once Corona's back. Like, do you believe a lot of labels are kind of holding on to releases and waiting for the right time to release them?
I think some might be. I mean, we slowed down our club releases a little bit for a while, but we're back. We're, full steam ahead. With what we're doing. We've got releases almost every week for the rest of this year and moving on from that. So we're kind of like, the reason we didn't stop actually. We kept things that had radio or Triple J or specialist dance music shows were likely to potentially play. We kept rolling with. What we stopped was the full-on club stuff. So quite underground club music, we didn't release anymore. So we kind of eased up on that front, and only for a couple of months, because we were like not only was every club in Australia shut, Ibiza was shut, England was shut, America was shut. So we were kind of like, the whole of Europe's closed as well, as far as, clubbing. Ibiza's not going to happen this year. Whole of Australia is shut. So let's just ease up on the club things and save them to a little bit later when they can get some support. And we're kicking all that back in now. So,
do you think a lot of labels worldwide are going to have the same sort of idea, or do you think once things are back, it's just going to be like a crazy amount of new music?
There'll be a lot of new music, but at the same time, labels like Defected haven't changed their release schedule because they have this ability to expose their music to a lot of people under their own steam. The same, a bit similar with Ultra, because they've got such huge followings out of America, big YouTube channels. They can put records out and expose them. Whereas if you're a very small independent label, how do you get exposure if clubs aren't playing your music? Of course you can get onto playlists. Of course you can get onto Triple J's of the world. But I think, there's a certain element of, okay, how are we going how are we going to expose our music? So until you've got a way to expose it, get support, it's hard to put things out. But of course, all that's starting back now. So there's opportunity again now, I think what you've got to do is you've got to leverage your own, everyone's got their unique things that come to them, that not just come to them, but that they make happen, If you're a Dom Dollar, your unique thing is that you've got a huge touring profile, which you can tap into. If you're, Jacob and Tom with Eugenius, they've got, a domestic touring and an underground network that they can relate to, that they can kind of engage with. Obviously, the touring DJs that they know that come over here, they can get their music to them still. If you're a Triple J styled artist, you can get your songs on Unearthed. You can do a lot of things to set yourself up, even though you can't guarantee the support from any of those things.
Yeah.
We've all got our unique angles of what we do. And, at the moment, somebody like yourself, Christian, you've probably got a little bit more time to do remixes. You may not get paid as much because they're not as in demand, but you might think, is it about making money? Is it about being creative? Is it about keeping my brand in people's face? Is it about being part of the scene and just supporting what the fuck's going on? Because, it's pretty shit. Like, it's all of that stuff. Yeah. And that's where things like this, we did at Vicious, we did 4 weeks of online seminars. I don't know if anybody in this was dropped into them. They might have. But we did 4 weeks when the COVID first started, 4 seminars with our team, and one was based on A&R and how to get music signed. One was based on management. One was based on marketing and promotion, and one was based on I went right through the structure of royalties and how they work.
Oh, amazing.
For both publishing and masters. It was a little bit in depth, but I think it made sense to most people. I tried to make it as simple as possible. I mean, it is a pretty complex business model. The videos are up on, all 4 are up on the Vicious YouTube, so anybody can watch them whenever they want.
Wow. Oh, mate, I will link them in. I didn't realize that. That's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah, anyone's welcome
touching
to
on,
have a look.
Touching on the A&Ring and the label side, like we've had a couple of artists we've interviewed and we've had kind of their take on how they send demos to a record label. But coming from the other end of it, like, are there any tips you can give to any up and coming producers on how to send records to a record label, do's and don'ts?
Oh, look, I mean, I'd say the definite. I think you've got to have an idea about where your music's at and why you're targeting where you're targeting. We can see if you've just thrown it at the wall and it's gone, especially if you accidentally blind CC 50 other labels. That's the first mistake. But even so, you should kind of like, you wouldn't go and see a movie. You don't just walk into the movie theater, sit down at theater number 8 because you want to see a romantic comedy and a horror comes on and you go, what the fuck, why is there a horror movie playing when I'm sitting in this theater? I mean, you've got to do some homework. You've got to understand the difference between, Sony Music, Universal, Vicious, Hot Sunday. Everyone's got their little things that they do well. Everyone's got the things that maybe they don't do as well. And it's not so much even about some of that stuff. I mean, it's about how you fit into that system and how much love do you get? How are you a part of the people around you? How permanent are the people around you? How much do they believe in you? Why do they want to sign you? Why do they want to put your music out? These are the questions that you should be asking before you send music to a label, because, it's not always great to be signed to Sony if you're an independent artist that wants to be super creative and release a techno record and then release a house record and then release a trap record. Well, guess what? A deal with Sony probably ain't going to work because they want what fits in the box that they sign. So if they sign you as a trap artist or a trap producer with a rapper on it, they're probably expecting your next record to be a trap record with a rapper on it.
Yeah.
Which is not that entirely unreasonable to think.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to really, I think you owe it to yourself to do some homework. And then when you do send stuff, you understand, you can say to a label, whether you run into them or whether you come up to someone like Christian or someone like me and go, hey, Corsi, you know, I know that you guys put out this, this, and this, you know, like, I feel like the tracks I'm making, you know, you guys would understand them. I feel like you'd be a good home from what I've seen you put out. You know, I'm targeting you first because I don't want to send it to 10 labels. So, but I would appreciate if you could get back to me quickly with some feedback. You know, if you do have a personal contact like that, obviously it's great and you probably will get the feedback. If you send it to a listening box, which all of us labels probably have, whether it be info at Hot Sunday or whether ours is info at Vicious, and there's also one that runs through a demo box that we have, which I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's on our website. You know, that stuff, we're not going to reply to everybody because we get too much music. And, you know, I guess that's just nature of the beast, that if you do send something through that's amazing, you're probably going to get a call back. If you give, when you do give your music out, don't give 10 records. You know, if you can't decide the strongest 2 or 3 tracks out of your 10 demos, then have, you know, what's that saying to us? It's saying, I've got a whole bunch of shit. I don't really know what I'm doing. Pick out 3 records. Pick out 3 records, send them through and go, here's 3 tracks I've been working on to give you a flavor of what I'm doing. I mean, most labels, certainly we don't really want to sign 1 record. We want to work with artists long term. We want to help develop them. We're not necessarily worried if they do want to do music for another label, but it's the context of how they do that music for another label. And I guess the examples along that front that I would give is that I think you need a team. You need people committed to you, and you don't get commitment without giving commitment. And so let's say you do a deal with Vicious and you go, okay, I'll sign my next 6 records to you, but I want to put some stuff out on Hot Sunday. Or you do the opposite and you say to Christian, I'll sign you 6 records, which is probably 1.5 to 2 years worth of releases, because I love what you do, but I want the ability to put a couple of tracks out in between that with some other labels so I can spread my profile. I don't think Vicious nor Christian's probably going to have an issue with that. But if you want to sign us 1 record and go, oh, well, I don't want to sign anymore because, you know, I might get a better deal tomorrow. It's kind of like you're giving no commitment to the label you're going to. And this stands for any label. And if you're giving them no commitment, guess what? They ain't giving you no commitment either. So when it comes to doing things like a promo video or a lyric video for your song or an extra high profile remix, the budget's going to be different if you're signed for 6 records versus signed for 1. Because what you're doing when you're signed for 6 records is we're investing in the next 2 years of your career. When you sign for 1, we're investing in your next 2 months. So it's a very big difference from a label's point of view. And I think artists need to realize that it's not about giving up your rights for 2 years. It's about, where do I find people that are going to help me do what I want to do? Because most people can't, very few, I would say, artists can run labels, run business affairs, do royalties, make music. You know, like, it's hard to do all that shit properly. And you know, do you and again, is that what you want to be doing? Is that, you know, if you're a creative music maker, do you want to be sitting on a phone call with 4 artists arguing about why their promo didn't go out on time, or why there was a misspelt, you know, remix title, or, you know, what, you know, why did it not appear on Traxsource for 2 days when it was supposed to be up there on Friday and there was a mistake, so it didn't turn up there till Sunday? I mean, this shit happens. That's the life of running a label. And, you know, I think a lot of people these days, they go, oh, I'll start a label, but they don't know what is part of it. So again, as an artist, you need to understand those subtle differences between labels, between the people who run them, when they're signing you, how long-term are they committed to you? Do they love what you do? Do they want to help you do it? They want to help you develop. You know, I think A&R is about feedback. It's about a trusted ear. And it's about, you know, having people that you think are going to increase your output. And that might
Yeah.
be by creatively helping you. It might be by technically helping you. It might be by time-wise helping you. It might be by business-wise helping you. It could be all those things. It doesn't necessarily have to be an A&R person. It could be a manager. It could be a trusted industry person who knows about distribution, so they can help you do an independent distribution deal. There's a million different setups these days. No one is 100% right or 100% wrong, but I do think you really need to do some homework about what people are bringing to the table when you're signing deals, and try and make sure that they're things that you need help with.
100%. I think if you're an artist just trying to get a record signed so you can tell your mates, oh, look, I've got a record signed, then it's probably the wrong you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons, and you might need to rethink it. No, that's really great advice.
Well, I think I don't think there'd be many A&R people that don't ask the question, what else do you have?
Yeah.
Before they
definitely
sign record one, they're going to ask a few questions about what you do, because, in this day and age, anybody can be the artist. I can go to a ghost producer. If I'm rich, I could pay a ghost producer $5,000 to make me a tech house record. And I know plenty of producers who take the $5,000 and make me an average playable tech house record.
Yeah.
And if I'm taking that to a label to get signed and they think it's okay, what are they signing?
Yeah.
If I'm an unknown DJ with no profile, I don't bring anything to the table from that front. I don't bring any sales, marketing angles. I'm not an Instagram model. I don't, you ask these questions when you sign music, you find out more about it. We've had artists bring music in, and ultimately we've been like, the people, what are we signing if we sign this artist? We're not signing them. We're signing a bunch of their mates and friends and cohorts. Correct.
What's your take if you get a bunch of records that kind of have obvious splice samples, or maybe even like uncleared samples? Is that something where you look to get uncleared samples covered, or do you get put off by them if you hear the same sort of samples?
Certainly don't get put off by them. I mean, probably someone like Andy Van is more likely to pick up obvious production, like, splice, a really obvious thing that everyone's used. Potentially he's more likely to pick it up because he's more of a producer than I am. I'm going to listen to the overall vibe of it. Certainly if it has an old sample, of course, I'm going to know it, because I've got a pretty deep musical history as far as knowing a cappellas and being, I've heard this before, because I've heard so much music, but definitely not put off by it, because some of the best ideas have samples and they're great. It's just a discussion about how it comes out, what the limitations are, what artists have to expect can happen. It's certainly not a negative in this day and age. You just got to be aware of it and understand that there's ways to do things. We initially put Gimme 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 out with no clearance.
Yeah.
However, it didn't have any samples in it. It's completely replayed. It's a cover.
Yeah.
We initially put it out. We thought we'll see how it goes. It started to really grow, and then we were like, "Shit, we don't want to knock on the door now and have them say no."
Yeah.
So then we waited until it had really become very, very big here as far as radio, and we were like, "You know what? The time has come. We just need to ask the question." So we did, and 4 weeks later we got the clearance.
Amazing.
So even though it was a cover, 100% cover, all the money going to the original ABBA writers. It was never about Sergeant Slick trying to steal part of the money for the writers. But, he
never registered his name to publishing or anything like that. You just put it out and waited to see what happened. Yeah. Gotcha.
Now, if there's underground records with a sample in it, and somebody registered as theirs, shit like that probably happens, and you worry about it.
Oh, for sure.
At some point into the future, and you see what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a classic saying, where there's a hit, there's a writ. So if a record comes together and becomes big, somebody's going to know about it, no matter how obscure the sample is. If
Yeah.
it becomes big, you know, the guitar riff in Gotia, somebody that I used to know. Who the fuck knew what that was when it came out? I tell you who knew when it was a hit, the guy who played it. He knew.
Wow.
And he
Holy
went,
shit.
holy shit, this song's #1 in Australia and it's got me playing guitar on it and I'm not getting paid. Let's
Well, I
sort
did
this
not know
out.
that was a sample. Oh my God.
Doom, ticka doom, ticka doom, ticka doom.
Yeah.
That guitar riff is a total sample.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah. And the interesting
Everything's a
thing is,
sample.
as I understand it, when it was #1 in Australia and had the sample in it, and then Gotia, either for creative reasons or because he maybe made a bit of a business mistake, he didn't replay it. He actually
Oh
just
my
cleared
God.
the sample, which, you know, is admirable if it was deliberate.
Yeah.
Then it went to #1 in the US. So just imagine the royalties from a #1 record in the US, even
Oh
just
my God.
15% that you could have replayed for like maybe $1,000.
Yeah.
And instead,
Wow.
so, you know, I mean, it's just interesting how things can roll. You never know, but that one seems like it probably should have been replayed if it wasn't, and I don't think it was.
Oh my God. What a mistake. Yes. It's not
But
hard to
maybe he's
replay. There's
also a
like a
creative.
replay heaven and all sorts
Yeah,
of
but you know
other
what? He might be a
websites.
creative. He might be a creative guy that's saying, "I respect the art of sampling, and I
Yeah.
want you to have. You wrote. You know, they were always going to get publishing, but I like the way you play this. You deserve this. I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
You can have that attitude too. It's not necessarily a mistake to deliberately look after people who've helped you make a fucking enormous hit record. You know, even if they
Sometimes I
weren't
guess
sitting in the studio at the time.
a sample can have a certain quality to it that you just can't replay. I know Dawley was telling me Piano Weapon with Shadow Child. They tried to get that replayed, but no one could do it just justice. Nothing sounded as good as a cover, so they ended up just clearing the sample.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've replayed a lot of samples over many, many years, you know. You can get pretty good ones now.
Is that so for people that wanting to go and get stuff replayed? Is that like is it Replay Heaven or something like that in the UK?
Yeah, there's a couple of people that do it. Replay Heaven do it. There's an Italian company whose name I don't know off the top of my head, but they're pretty easy to find online. But Replay Heaven is definitely one. Yeah,
Yeah,
they've done
amazing.
stuff for us. I mean, we once had, when we put out the Door, Dirty South made a cover version of the Doors, "Baby I'm Gonna Leave," and we got the guitars and all the music replayed by, might have even been Replay Heaven, and I found a Doors cover band in America, and they'd been the singer had been singing Jim Morrison records for 20 years, and he'd never recorded.
Wow.
Right? Would have a release out. So we paid him to sing "Baby, Baby, Baby, I'm Gonna Leave You." You know, that "I Ain't Your Woman," you know, like amazing vocal. It come back so close when we put the record out, the Doors management sent us a cease and desist. And said,
"Wow,
you've sampled our record." And we sent them back the broken down vocals and all of the agreements with the replay people and the singer, and they were like, "Okay, you
holy
didn't."
shit!"
You know.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
So you can get pretty good
replays.
replays.
Thanks for asking a question, Karina. If you were to sample one sentence from a verse of a song, would you need to get that cleared, or do you have a fair use license?
No such thing as a fair use license, even if it's one sound. If I've made a really quirky sound that I know is me, and you sample it and it's on your record, I can sue you for it. And if I prove that it's me, I can get a share of the royalties. It's as simple as that. There's no such thing as fair use. Now, of course, it'd be very hard for a single sound like a ooh or ah to prove that it was me. James Brown might have a case. Michael Jackson might have a case. You know, with the way he does notes, maybe. And if it was broken down and somebody could match it exactly, and what happens is people, when these cases go, people called musicologists, they recreate this stuff and they recreate it. So they will, if they think something's been sampled, they will basically reverse engineer it to work out if it was that thing. And if they work out that it was, they'll present that in a court and they will win their case. Yeah. So no matter when you use samples, you need to always be aware that, you know, somebody could say, that's my guitar playing. And obviously the reason for that is because you may have an amazing way that you play the guitar. And obviously people like Jimi Hendrix and, you know, you can't just learn to play electric guitar like Jimi Hendrix. So if you're sampling somebody like that, apart from the fact that there's physical notes that are getting played that Jimi Hendrix potentially wrote, which are his forever, he may have a certain way he plays a guitar that you just can't match. And even a replay won't quite nail it. And if you use that sample, people can tell that you've used that sample. So yeah, no such thing as fair use, even though there's lots of ways you can get away with stuff. And people, of course, always do. They pitch things, they reverse them, they fuck with them, and nobody ever knows there was a sample in there. And a lot of producers have done that over the years. They're almost making it into a new sound in itself anyway. So it's kind of like, well, are you...
The Prodigy did that a lot, didn't they? Oh my God. You watch some of their YouTube videos and you're just like, wow, it's crazy how they made stuff.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people have manipulated stuff. There's lots of people that haven't. And, you know, the reason De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising album is still not on Spotify is because they can't agree on the samples. It's still not done and dusted. You know, it's not available digitally anywhere in the world.
Wow. Is that an old record?
3 Feet High and Rising is probably in the top 10 hip hop albums ever made. De La Soul.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a moment, you know, it was a moment when it came out. It's right up there with, you know, Public Enemy, as far as amazing hip hop records. And it's so funky and it samples Daryl Hall and John Oates. I Can't Go For That, amongst a billion other things. I mean, it's got a lot of samples in it.
Amazing.
So, you know, it's still not out.
And if someone wanted to listen to that, probably YouTube or something, or you just can't, you have to buy the record?
YouTube. I'm sure that the songs are up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still buy, I still do see the CDs come up on music for sale sites, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got the vinyl in there somewhere, and I've got the 12-inch singles, and I've got 3 or 4 of the singles as digital copies from, I don't know where I found them, but I found them over the years. But the whole album, not commercially available.
Wow, that's amazing.
There's probably others as well.
If anyone has any further questions about their tracks that are sampling, they can just send it to me and I can give them some more advice as well. And if you need further
George has got a question. Oh, no, sorry. Arden's got a question. What if it's a sample from a royalty-free CD? If you have a look at the fine print, if you have a look at the fine print, most of the royalty-free CDs, it says not for commercial exploitation. So they're kind of saying, if you're not getting paid, we don't have to get paid. You can use it. If you're getting paid, we got to get paid. Now, they're not going to probably chase you on drum loops because there's a billion of them and they're nowhere near as distinctive in a way. And their business model probably would be pretty hurt if they chased an artist and sued them over a drum loop, because that's the core of their business, right? You know, so where would they stand in the future if everybody knew that if you just used a drum or a snare and they proved it was theirs? On that front, I think they're more like a musical instrument where you know, everyone knows what a 909 kick drum and snare sounds like. 90, you know, Roland aren't suing people who use a 909. If they did, they'd fucking own house music, right? So I think those sample CDs are a little bit more like that as far as sounds go. But if you were to take an entire riff, something that, you know, Steve Angelo did on, what was the song?
Oh, Nas.
Right, Nas.
Yeah. Vengeance sample.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know whether he just put that out and got away with it, or whether Vengeance come and said, actually, they're our musical notes. You know, we've got to get a share of this. You've commercially exploited it. We've got to get a share of it. I don't know what happened, but as far as I know, the fine print on most of that stuff does say for non-commercial exploitation. So, you know.
Yeah. And I guess it comes down to as well, like a lot of us DJs, we're putting stuff that's getting, you know, maybe a couple 100,000 players on Spotify if we're lucky. A lot of these companies probably aren't going to chase you over the records if you've used splice samples. I don't think. I mean, I personally haven't actually heard of anyone that has been chased and hunted down for using specific splice samples. I don't know if you have, John. No, yeah.
No, I haven't. And again, you know, the labels understand, you know, we understand how much money roughly is in the system when we look at what things are streaming, you know, and, you know, it also comes back to, you know, very few labels have the ability to clear a sample without the artist agreeing to it. It's in most of our contracts, right? So even if I don't care if Don't Call Me Baby gets used on a student film at Monash University for 500 people, right? But if Andy Van sees it and hates it, we are obliged to contact them and say, you can't do this. That's part of the deal that we make as a record label, is to represent the business affairs of your music. And in every contract, certainly every contract we have with every artist, you have to go back to the artist whenever there's what's called a sync, which is what that is. A sync is when your music gets used for any movie, TV ad, political campaign. I mean, imagine if you know, you're in America, your son just got shot by a cop, and you know the police force are doing a pro-police video, and they grab a song that you own without asking. I mean, you're going to be like, there's no fucking way I want my song associated with this because, you know, my son just got shot, or my wife died of cancer, and, you know, there's a big chemical company using a petroleum company using my song, and they got infected because of, you know, like, so you can't use.
I heard Trump was using like people's tunes for his campaign, and people were going off about it. Or was it? It was what's his face, the Australian. I forget his name.
Without asking, they did. They definitely did, and it made the news. And as I understand it, they settled out of court because you just can't do it. Having said that, there are basic broadcast agreements. So there's a difference between a sync by a third party and a sync by a TV station. So if Channel 9 want to advertise the block and they want to run ads on Channel 9 for the block, and they want to put a song over it, they need to come to you and clear it. But if they want to play your song in and out of an ad break while the actual block TV show is running, they don't need to ask you, and you can't stop them.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So, because the way it works is there's blanket broadcast agreements so that, you know, sports shows, the news, anything made by one of the major networks in Australia, ABC, SBS, Channel 9, Channel 10, Channel 7, they can play whatever they want in and out of the tennis, and APRA and PPCA effectively have agreed to a rate that's like $30 for 15 seconds, $60 for 30 seconds, something like this. I mean, you can look it up on the APRA and PPCA websites, but it's basically a blanket license. It's the same sort of thing that they give to clubs, so that clubs can play your music. And if you go into, like if you got kicked out of 161, you can't go to them and say, you're not allowed to play my song. You owe me money. Like, you just can't do it. So there's a lot of blanket licenses, but for specialist things, if it's a third party company making the show, so Fremantle Media are producing a show, they've got to come to you and clear every song in it. But if Channel 9 were making that show, as it goes live to air, they can put whatever songs they want in it and just pay a flat fee. It's kind of a good deal for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I remember Clive Palmer used a Twisted Sister. We're not gonna take it.
Okay.
And it was on the news, and the lead singer of Twisted Sister's like, "I'm coming for you, Clive." So be careful. Don't use Twisted Sister, or he's gonna come and get you. Nick Wilco's got a question for the use of spoken word samples from interviews on YouTube. So you're technically not sampling music. You could be sampling like a motivational speaker, or you could be sampling right now.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is if you're sampling me now, I know where it come from, and I know that Christian made the recording, right? Because there's no other recording of this, right? So I can come to you and say, hey, Christian, someone sampled me and they put me in their song, and I know that the recording was from this Zoom chat, so we own it. But if you're in the public domain, it may be impossible to know where the sample come from. So if you're sampling a specific chick on YouTube going, whatever, like there's been lots of them done, people know where it comes from. Whereas somebody sampling maybe Dan Andrews going, get on the beers, get on the beers. While it's funny, there was probably 100 microphones at that press conference.
Yeah.
So who owns the master rights?
Yeah.
Very hard to prove who owns the master rights. And secondly, the written work, it was all chopped up into a different order. So again, who wrote the words? So, I mean, probably where you come unstuck on that front is when you're going into people that are so famous that they're worth sampling and there's 100 mics recording them. You're getting into an area of intellectual copyright as opposed to audio copyright, in that you are increasing the commercial viability of your song because everybody knows it's Jay-Z talking from an interview, and you're trading off Jay-Z's goodwill. Therefore, Jay-Z's lawyers may come to you and say, hey, my intellectual property, you're trading off my profile, the same way that you can if you use somebody's logo or you use their catchphrase or those sorts of things. So, where you might get out of one pot, you may be jumping into another pot.
Yeah.
But look, with most samples, now getting back to it, very few people, artists, musicians don't want to stop a successful thing.
Yeah.
And you've probably got to be the most careful when you're sampling superstars, because they don't need the money and they don't want their career fucked with. So if you're sampling Beyonce, she's got her own agenda. If you're sampling the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, that's why they're not sampled hardly ever. If you're sampling ABBA, ABBA's cleared one sample since one sample ever. They've had covers come out, but they cleared one sample.
Madonna? Was that the Madonna sample?
Yeah, they cleared the same riff from Gimme Gimme, the Hung Up. Hung Up. They actually cleared their sample. And again, that's because it was probably coming from a superstar in Madonna, and they were like, you know what, we're down with this. But if you're sampling obscure left field things, you're pretty unlucky if you run into somebody that just says, fuck you, I don't want you to sample me. I mean, the Rolling Stones famously sued the Verve, right,
Yeah.
for "Sympathy for the Devil."
Yeah.
And when they sued them for the entire song. Yet the Rolling Stones song was an instrumental,
Yeah.
and the Verve took the Rolling Stone instrumental, replayed it, and then added lyrics. And the Rolling Stones sued the Verve for 100% of the written work and won the case, right?
Wow.
And even though the Verve wrote the lyrics, Rolling Stones got all of the money. That was 20 years ago. And the Rolling Stones' argument was, you don't have a choice to fuck with my song. It's not
Yeah.
your decision. I wrote it. This is how it
Yeah.
is. Whether I like what you did or didn't like, the argument, they're going to win, right? Legally, they're going to win it.
Wow.
Only recently, the Rolling Stones actually have transferred some writing back to the Verve because they felt that creatively it should be equally split.
Wow.
And now the Verve do get a writer's share in it, but for a long time they didn't. So it's just interesting that, that's just a good example that, no one would doubt that the Verve's vocal on Bittersweet Symphony was A, amazing, and B, was a massive part of why it was a hit. But
Yeah.
Unfinished Symphony was the underneath, and Rolling Stones won the case.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, everyone knows that tune. I'll chuck all the links to all the stuff we're talking about into the YouTube video once it's up as well. Another thing I wanted to ask you and touch on, because I remember we were having lunch with Gabby in the middle of when we were able to, I think it was like the one lunch I snuck in before we went.
Same.
And well, you were chatting to me about what you kind of feel like a lot of artists kind of should be utilizing the time during isolation to be doing. And, you had an idea of what people coming out the other end should have done. Do you want to touch on a little bit of that?
I mean, look, my mentality is that, we can't do anything about the situation that we're in, right? So, if you're kind of like an artist that comes out of what is now 6 months, right? 6 months from the first isolation to now. If you come out of that and I log onto your Facebook and I look at your bio and it's fucked, it's old, it's not up to date, I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? You know what I mean? Like, I've actually got a couple little things because I haven't released a lot of music, but I've just got a new record that is coming out. I had to do a little update, and I still have to do a little update with Apple because I haven't had an artist profile there before because I've worked under lots of different names. So I need to do that. But things like, my Facebook bio's up to date. I've had new photos done in the last 6 months. Like, I don't know, like just all those little things, you should be doing. I mean, if you're a DJ,
learn to make a website.
Well,
I think the first thing I did after that lunch was go home and fix my bio.
I guilted you into it, hey? But I mean, this is the thing. We can't DJ, right? So if you're playing 3 gigs a week and you're doing 3 hours a night, there's 9 hours that you've got, plus the time you hang out afterwards and before. There's a day that you've got at least extra that you didn't have before. What did you do with it?
Yeah.
You should come out of this with more music, new skill sets. Like I'm much better at Canva and doing artwork than I ever was before. I'm much better at doing broadcasts and understanding, the ins and outs of the web a little bit more. That's just a couple of things. I've made more music than I've ever made as a personal producer. The fruits of that labor is, the record that's out now. It's the first thing I've done completely solo for, I can't remember how long. I mean, I've done a few remixes, but as an original record since I did the underground thing on Vicious Black probably 4-5 years ago. So I've got another record coming later in the year with Sergeant Slick. I've got another music project underway. Obviously been building the YouTube, Twitch and Facebook page for myself. Instagram has gone from, I think, 2,500 to nearly 8,000. My Facebook page has gone from 6,500 to 22,000.
Wow.
That's all because obviously of the broadcast on Saturday nights, but it's also using that and doing things to feed it, that I've got time to do now that I may not have had time to do, 6 months ago when I was, running Vicious and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's,
yeah.
and
I think
everybody
that's a
can.
good point. With the Canva and artwork, it's like, if you've lost a bit of income, can you find a way to maybe do something else yourself rather than paying a third party person? Because you can maybe do that artwork for your next release yourself, or you could maybe become better at stem mixing and just get a master or something next time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that you can. There's so many little things that go into DJing. I mean, it might even be, I still know DJs that don't use rekordbox. They still put all their music onto a USB, which is fine. Like, if that's how you want to do it, that's how you want to do it. But do you understand what you're missing out on with the flexibility of rekordbox and how the ability to search through music while you're DJing and look at different search by playlist, search by artist, search by title, search by comments, search by key, like all this stuff that you can do that makes you a better DJ in 6 months' time when we're playing in January next year. Did you do that now? Or did you just not bother?
Yeah.
So there really is quite a lot of little things that you can tick that you can improve your whole outcome at the end of this, and be in a better position.
100%. I think jumping on and watching those Vicious videos on your YouTube could be one of them as well. That's great. I'm going to have to check them out. There's a lot to learn about the music industry, and if you use this time to learn about how royalties are done and all that other stuff as well, that's going to be handy. Especially you'll understand maybe when a label sends you a contract, you know what you're looking at and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not expected to be becoming. I mean, look, by no means am I an expert in graphic design. By no means, there's always going to be people that know more about graphic design, more about how to do web broadcasts, more about webcams, more about video editing, more about all of that shit, right? But have I upskilled enough that, that piece of artwork that goes up on my Mixcloud every week, instead of just having nothing, there's a little piece of artwork there, and it covers off and it gets the job done. All of that stuff. And especially if you're a producer, I mean, I guess there's an absolute pool of stuff you can jump into as a creative producer to go, I'm going to work on, A, B, C, or D,
Yeah, absolutely. Did any of you guys have any questions? You can chuck yourselves off mute if you want to ask live, or you can throw it into the chat. Anyone out there at all? Don't be shy. George, DJ Fuel, what are you doing to upskill? Maybe making an OnlyFans or? Oh, awesome, mate! Thanks so much for your time. Oh, here he is. G'day, George. We can't hear you, mate. Thanks so much for your time. There's some amazing insight there. I wasn't aware about those Vicious videos, but I'm going to go and check them out as well. And I'll be sure to throw them in our Facebook hub as well. I think people are just basically checking out all this stuff while they have the time now. We don't really know how much longer this is going to be going on for. So,
well, even that, and again, even that's the same thing. Just watching videos about things like this, things like those. There's other ones overseas, Tool Room did some workshops. Defected have been doing stuff. Like, there's labels all around the world. Producers have been doing stuff. There's so much information out there that you can gather. And of course, no one wants to sit through this shit all the time. But when you get, you're stressed and you don't want to, you go out for a walk, chuck a podcast on, listen to some interviews or some stuff and try and, yeah, you know, increase your skill set so that you do come out in a more positive, well, with more things that can help you
Yeah.
achieve what you want to achieve, and do some planning as well. That's really important too.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get so
Amazing.
caught up in the day to day that you don't sit back and go, right, what's the next 6 to 12 months look like? And that's something that, excuse me, that you can really do now.
Amazing. And if people want to watch your live streams, they just jump onto your Facebook or is Twitch? Is it just?
Look, I think the Twitch is the best feed. It basically doesn't get cut off. So
Yep.
just look for Twitch, John Course, DJ John Course. My Facebook is just off my Facebook page, my DJ Facebook page, John Course, and my YouTube channel is just John Course as well. So you can check those all out on Saturday nights. And yeah, nice to have a chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Expect
Pleasure.
a lot of demos. All right. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys. Thanks
guys.
for joining in, everyone that joined in. Really appreciate it.
Cheers,
And
guys.
we'll
See
chat again soon. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Make sure you do hit subscribe and turn the notifications on so you're going to get notified every time we upload a video. We're doing a minimum of 2 a week, sometimes 3, covering all bases in the industry from mental health, production tips, interviewing, DJs. We're going to go deep, 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 covering all bases, get you all the information you need. Hopefully some of it is useful and there's not too much of me talking shit.